My name is Eric Osborne from Transformational Families. This is part 3 of a 3-part video series introducing parents and caregivers to the world of connected parenting. This video focuses on some of the most popular parenting tools used in connected parenting. There are a lot more, of course. We hope that when you are done, you feel you have a basic understanding of connected parenting, also called trust-based relational intervention. It is a unique way to parent children from hard places that gets excellent results. The kind of parenting a child who has experienced developmental trauma in the first 2 to 3 years of their life needs is focused on connection. They will only be healed through relationship, through connection. It's a well-known fact that all children must attach and bond with a caregiver in order for their brains to develop, period. If this process is disrupted or harmed by trauma, parents will have to bring healing through connection that allows the child to feel safe, secure, and loved. Only then can they begin the process of learning how to think in ways that are more healthy. This is called connected parenting. Parenting that focuses on attachment and relationship as the first and primary goal. And it is often very different in how it looks in day-to-day practice than, say, traditional parenting. Let's take a quick look at the kinds of techniques most parents use in raising a child. These would be considered more traditional, or perhaps you might say typical. So first, there's number 1, verbal reprimand. The child does something that is not appropriate, and the parents verbally reprimand the child. Second is isolation. That's where the child has done something unacceptable, and the child is sent to their room, or they're grounded, or there are other kinds where they're sent away. The third is giving them consequences when they misbehave. They do something, there is a set of consequences. And then finally, number 4 is physical punishment for misbehavior. Now, which ones were used by your parents as you were growing up? Now, notice these tools don't really address or support connection very well, do they? They're focused on waiting for misbehavior to happen, then responding. Now, not all traditional parenting is just reactive, but it has a tendency to lean in that direction very easily. Now, if you remember how the traumatized brain works, how well do you think these 4 traditional techniques will work with a child from hard places? Typical parenting methods rely on punishment and even to some extent fear to cause the child to remember the consequences of their actions before they do it again, causing them to choose better. At least that's the hope. But children from hard places can rarely, if ever, respond that way. Instead, typically, they don't remember ahead of time and then go into fear mode when confronted with punishment, resulting in overall disconnection and all sorts of other unwelcome behaviors. We are going to have to find a different way, aren't we? Parenting a child from hard places requires that we build a strong foundation of connection. And connected parent training will help you understand how to make connection your goal in parenting, even in moments when correction is needed. We call it connecting while correcting. We're moving at a breakneck speed. We've talked about the principles of empowering and connecting and then correcting, and we've looked at a very practical, hands-on way to do that called the ideal response. Now let's get even more concrete. Having examined those bases for connected parenting, what kinds of specific practices set it apart from other approaches? Now, to really explore this and each of these parenting strategies would take a lot more time than we have today. We offer a 6- and a 9-week parenting class that goes over these things in much greater detail. We highly recommend you do this as soon as possible. And I even have more information about that if you like. But to give you an initial idea of what connected parenting entails, we will quickly move through a few key parenting strategies for you. A very helpful tool is the practice of using scripts. Scripts are short phrases prepared ahead of time to be used in the moment, because sometimes it's hard to think on our feet, especially when our child's behavior takes us off guard or pushes our buttons. But that's the time when specific and wise intervention is needed the most. So a pre-planned and deliberately worded script can help us stay on track when we need it the most. It's also a great way to teach ahead of time the kinds of values and life skills that you want them to learn. So let's look at a few of my favorites. First, there's show respect. Children need to learn to treat themselves and others with respect. And it's just 2 words, show respect. Use your words or use good words. Sometimes when children act out aggressively, we can tell them, use your words. Or if they're using words we don't want them to use, we can say, use your good words. Another one that's very popular is called gentle and kind. The idea of no hurts. And that's really the basic idea. No hurting our bodies or our hearts. We don't hurt other people's bodies or their hearts. So sometimes we can just, somebody says something that's not nice, we can just say gentle and kind. Just 3 words. Another one that's really important is who's the boss? Sometimes another way to say that is adults are in charge. Because children need to be reminded from time to time that they don't call all the shots, that there is somebody who they have to listen to. And a nice playful, who's the boss, reminds them of that. Another one is listen and obey. Sometimes we need to teach children that they need to listen carefully and they need to obey. And then the last one can be very helpful, especially to children from hard places, is to just sometimes we have to accept no. When we try to say yes as often as we can, but sometimes we have to accept no. These are some very common life scripts. Many people have little scripts that they use, and probably you do too. But these are some that can be very strategic. You can teach them ahead of time, and you can also use them in the moment when you need to respond very quickly, but you don't want to respond with a bunch of emotion or a lot of words, because those words are just going to go in one ear and out the other. A short script can really be a helpful tool. Another parenting strategy of connected parenting is called playfulness. It is a reality that children learn best through play and imitation. And research tells us that information is learned 8 times faster if the child learns that information in the context of play. So adopting a more playful tone and a more playful approach when dealing with the child from hard places helps disarm their inherent fear as well as engages the brain more. And how can that be a bad thing? This parenting strategy is called redo. Redos are a very important tool. Redos, also known as try it again or do-overs, can be ideal for low-level misbehavior. They're effective for preventing behaviors from escalating or for reconnecting after an escalation is over. So redos are not effective while a child is dysregulated. Redos allow a child to get it right, to do it right, and receive praise for being successful. So a redo utilizes a powerful tool called body memory. When you actually do something, your body remembers those actions and language better. It's how we learn to ride a bike, for instance. The redo parenting tool uses this reality to help you teach the child how to do it the right way without lectures. It's really pretty powerful and not very confrontational at all, unless the child is dysregulated when you try it. If that's the case, it's better to wait a little bit until they are more regulated and calmed down, then try a redo. This becomes even more helpful when combined with a script. When a redo or compromise doesn't work or would be inappropriate, parents often resort to a disconnecting punishment, like sending a child to their room or isolating the child in some way. Some traditional parenting resources might even use the term timeout. But this is not a good idea with a child from hard places. Why? Because it pushes the child away. Remember, connection is the foundation for the healing you are seeking for your child from hard places. So instead of a timeout or sending the child away, draw them closer, connect more, use a time in. Time in is designed to help a child calm and re-regulate. It's not punishment, yet it does deal with the behavior right away. Time in reinforces the message that we solve problems together, not in isolation. Time in promotes both connection and the importance of right behavior, and it requires practice before you can do it smoothly. So practice it a few times and you'll find it gets easier every time. Giving choices recognizes an important reality. Like all human beings, we naturally rebel when we feel we are being railroaded or have no choices that we want. Well, children from hard places are even more like this. Arbitrary demands rub them the wrong way, big time. Giving choices encourages healthy brain development and builds trust between you and your child. And children are usually much more enthusiastic about something if they feel they have chosen what they're going to do. Giving choices and teaching your child to make choices requires a little practice, but it's really not that hard. After you give your child the choices you are offering, always end with which do you choose? It's not helpful to let them linger too long on the choices or let them suggest a bunch of alternatives that probably won't be acceptable. This should not be a long, drawn-out event. Now, a few things to remember. You should be the one to give the choices they can choose from, typically only 2 or 3 at the very most. And be sure you only offer choices you can live with, choices that you are willing and able to help carry out. Now, sometimes it can be helpful when a teenager suggests a choice after you've given them your suggestions. If their suggestion is reasonable, you will have even more buy-in and cooperation from the teen. So that would be the exception to the rule of you always being the one to make the suggestions. When you get the hang of this, you'll discover that almost everything can be turned into a choice if you wanted to. One way to do this is to develop your go-to choice, one that you can default to in the moment when perhaps you don't have the mental space to create others. A good go-to choice many parents use is you can either do X with me or by yourself. Which do you choose? I hope you noticed that no matter which one the child chooses, they're going to be doing the thing that the parent wants them to do. Giving choices, it's an amazing and wonderful tool. The next parenting strategy we will look at is called offering compromises. Sometimes it's also referred to as sharing power. Teaching your child how to seek, ask for, and accept compromise is a very important life skill. Healthy relationships require the ability to compromise. Dr. Purvis likes to remind us, when you share power through making compromises, you have proven that it's yours to share. However, sharing power must be done within limits and with respect. It's important that you teach your child how to ask for a compromise, and most importantly, that a compromise obligates you both to absolutely do what is agreed upon. Going back on your part of a compromise harms trust and jeopardizes the ability to make future compromises. Your child needs to understand this. Once you both agree to a certain compromise, both of you have to follow through. Also, don't stack compromises. Once a compromise is reaching its end stage, don't allow the child to renegotiate or ask for an additional compromise on the same issue. Remember, follow through is important to making future compromises. So the next time your child balks at doing something you ask them to do, you might say, "It sounds like you're asking for a compromise." If they say yeah, then tell them, "Okay, so ask me for a compromise." Then, when they do, let them offer an alternative. Negotiate a bit, then come to a mutually acceptable compromise. For example, you ask the child to go to bed on a school night, but they are watching TV or maybe reading a book. They balk, say no, or start to whine or complain. So you could say, "It sounds to me like you're asking for a compromise." The child might be a little confused, but says, "Yeah." So you say, "Okay, ask me for a compromise." The child says, "Can we have a compromise?" You say, "Good asking. What do you propose?" The child might say, "Can I go to bed in 15 minutes?" You think about it a second, and if you think that will be okay, you say, "Okay, so in 15 minutes you will follow through on your end of the deal and go to bed, right?" The child says, "Yes." You say, "Great, good compromise. See you in 15 minutes." Now, if the child had said, "Can I stay up until the show is over?" or basically ask for too long of a delay, one that you just can't accept, then you can tell them, "Well, that won't work too well. How about," and then make a more reasonable counterproposal, or maybe even better, just say, "That won't work too well. Can you offer another one?" And let them come up with an alternative. You'll get the hang of it with some practice, but it's really a very interesting and helpful parenting tool. The next parenting strategy is called role playing. Role playing is a very helpful tool to teach your child the kind of behavior you want them to show, but it has to be done proactively. You can't wait to teach them in the moment when they're showing the wrong kind of behavior. So you have to do this proactively. You have to plan ahead. Role playing uses the benefits of play to help teach your child the kind of responses and behaviors you want for them. You usually want to pick a good time, and you probably need to repeat it. Um, Set up a game where you role play a situation. Using puppets is a good idea here, but you don't have to. Start off by having the child react or behave the wrong way. Then have them practice it the right way. And be sure to praise them at every step. You may have to demonstrate the concepts and the reactions and behaviors that you want them to rehearse first. In fact, you probably will the first few times. You need to show them, you need to tell them, this is how you should do it. And then let them practice, pretend to do it the bad way. And just have a lot of fun with this. It should be fun, but it starts to slowly sink in. Because remember, play is a very powerful tool in a child's brain. Playing. It's a great strategy. Here we revisit the old consequences idea. Now, real life is all about consequences. So eventually, our children must learn to live so as to avoid the bad consequences for poor choices. But when they are young and you have not had many years to undo the damage that trauma has done to their brains, use consequences sparingly. The bottom line is think before you consequence. Consequences are a fact of life that cannot be ignored without a lot of misery later in life, like I said. And there are two types of consequences. There's natural consequences, like, for example, you threw your toy down and now it's broken. And there are logical consequences. These are parent-imposed consequences, such as you refuse to pick up your room, so you can't go to your friend's birthday party next week. Logical consequences make sense to the one imposing them, but children from hard places almost never get the connection. It just feels like arbitrary cruelty. And that's not very connecting at all, is it? Many parents also turn to consequences too quickly and too often. And one of the biggest problems of doing this is that it limits other parenting tools that you could use. If you're going to use consequences, and sometimes you do need to, use natural consequences because a child from hard places will be more likely to understand what's going on. But it's not guaranteed by any means. And remember the 4 R's if you feel you must resort to logical consequences. The consequences should be related to the behavior, and the more they're related, the better. Reasonable. If things are just too heavy, it turns sour real fast. Respectful. Not only should the consequences be respectful of your child, but you need to communicate it in a respectful manner as well. And finally, revealed in advance. The child should know the consequences well ahead of time. They might not remember it in time to keep from doing the behavior, but if they realize that they were told before, it will help them accept the consequences a little better. Consequences are a reality of life, but with children from hard places, these are the times when you will see tons of dysregulated behavior, and it can be pretty intense, which is why it's best to use them sparingly if you can. Making repairs is an incredibly important parenting tool. The goal of connected parenting is connection. When we as parents blow it and do or say something that is disconnecting and inappropriate to our connected parenting goals, we need to repair those mistakes as quickly as possible. So the goal of this tool is to quickly repair, then reconnect. You are going to make mistakes, but these can also be positive things if you demonstrate to your child how to repair the relationship after a mistake. They learn from that. And when you honestly and humbly repair your mistakes with your child, you are modeling the right behavior and you're modeling healthy ways of relating to people. You're also teaching the importance of forgiveness, and you're illustrating how that actually looks in real life. Repairing our mistakes also promotes healthy brain development. And that's really the goal of the tool, of all of our tools. And isn't that what we're hoping to do in the first place? Not only will we make plenty of mistakes as we parent, so we have to know how to repair those mistakes, but parenting a child from hard places takes a lot of work. If you burn out, you will undo a lot of the good that you're doing, kind of like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I'm sorry to have to say it, but too many parents today don't really count the cost of being a parent. Being the parent of a child from hard places takes even more out of you. So our last parenting tool that we'll look at is self-care. Again, TBRI is not hard to do, but it requires you be switched on all the time. And this can be exhausting, even on relatively good days. Count on it. So helpers and respite care are absolutely needed, and a support community is a must. So who do you have to be your helpers? How will you replenish your energy reserves on a regular basis? These are important questions that you need to sit down and think very hard about. Make a few phone calls, reach out. We all need a partner or helper or two. And support groups are also extremely helpful. Even if it's an online support group, you will find a lot of support and just a lot of caring people who get it, who understand what you're going through because they're going through it too. Communities like that are not always easy to find, but when you find them, they are definitely very, very helpful. We have moved at breakneck speed through the world of connected parenting. There's a lot to take in. I encourage you to continue your journey by doing some reading. Here's a list of excellent books that will help you in your connected parenting journey. They are worth their weight in gold and come highly recommended. And don't forget, the internet is also a powerful tool for learning about connected parenting. I highly recommend perusing the Empowered to Connect website. It has a lot of short parenting videos and articles explaining various aspects of connected parenting. It is a valuable resource for you. We also maintain a website at tfmnotalone.org that also has helpful information and tips for parents. Thank you for taking some time to take in this introduction to connected parenting. If there is any other way we can be of help to you on your connected parenting journey, feel free to contact us. Go to www.tfmnotalone.org and choose the Contact tab and send us a message. Remember, you are not alone.